Welcome to the Funnel Reboot Podcast, brought to you by Marketing What's New. Let's get into today's show.
Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot. Today, why the transparency of your brand matters. As my eldest son has been going through university, he's been working part-time at a sporting goods store. And the section he works in is the category leader in that store. As you can probably guess, it's shoes. Now, I need to admit, I'm not that into shoes, but I am fascinated by the conversations my son has with customers when it comes to shoes. They not only talk about the design features of a specific shoe, they also chat about the athletes who've worn it or collaborated with the brand to design it. They bring up details about how the athlete signed with that shoe company and the battling that went on between that brand and other shoe companies to win an athlete's endorsement. So clearly, when people buy shoes for exercising or training for something, they aren't just going after ergonomics. And this backstory on the brand's struggle matters. It's as if someone will only wear a brand that works as hard as they do in staying fit or competing in sports. They have to identify with the shoe brand. And this bond clearly applies to things reaching way beyond just shoes as a brand. It's good for products to have a strong brand message and proof points of value. But it seems that the true winners are those that connect their story to the customer's internal values, or that give the customer that transformational experience with the way that they operate as a brand. Today, I'm talking with someone who works with what he calls meaningful brands, producing their media creative in a way that resonates with buyers. Fittingly, the name of his London boutique agency is Way. My guest is a public speaker, also an ultra-marathon runner, podcaster, and he's even a skydiver. In 2021, he released the book we're talking about today, Not Another Pair of Shoes. So let's go now and talk with Alexander Novicov. Alexander Novicov, welcome to the show, Alexander.
Thank you very much, Glenn, for having me. It's a pleasure and a privilege being on your show.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We're here to talk about a book that you recently came out with. And what's it called?
Not Another Pair of Shoes.
Not Another Pair of Shoes. That tips your hat a little on what the book is about. Do you maybe want to just in your own words say why you gave it that title?
It's pretty straightforward because there's so many pair of shoes that we all own. And I always say, just don't be another pair of shoes, like stand out from the crowd. And it's a typical cliche, I know, but nobody wants another pair of shoes. We buy different brands for certain reasons. Nike, for example, Adidas, whatever the brand is, we always choose a specific brand. It might be in some cases, it's not shoes, but it might be a technology. It might be something else, but we always choose something that a brand that we love. So the reason why I called Not Another Pair of Shoes is just because to stand out, just don't be another pair of shoes.
And that's how buyers behave. And we, either as sellers or if we're an agency working on behalf of sellers, we have to remember coming from that angle that we shouldn't just be that other pair of shoes. We shouldn't just try to have the same specifications as everything else. That's not doing our buyer any service.
You can't basically differentiate yourself, and a lot of brands, they just become they see what their competitors do and they do the same thing, which is a shame because you just copy, isn't it? It's like
that's it, lazy.
Yeah.
And this is something that you got rather personal about because you said that it kind of started to sour you on marketing. That despite the fact that you, like me, got into marketing, not only that, but started marketing the services of a marketer, right? And building out a service firm, you really found it kind of sleazy the way that marketers were just getting stuff out the door, right? For the sake of turnover, they were just moving or trying to push the products in any way, shape, or form without any real overarching goal, right?
Yeah,
What
it's
changed your mind on that? What turned it around? What made you fall in love again with this profession?
It's a really good question because I nearly gave up marketing 5 years ago. Actually, I was like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like selling another pair of shoes, and hence I actually had a client that we were selling shoes, and I was like, what's the point of selling 10 more? What was the point? What's the point? And I had an awakening, a spiritual awakening at a conference that I went. And I was like, I don't want to do this thing anymore, like marketing, like Facebook ads, Twitter ads. It's all so boring. And I just lost my sense of purpose. And what inspired me actually was I thought, I was doing a research saying, what industry should I go into, or how? Because obviously, when you build an agency, I've been doing it for then 6 years. Like, I have clients, what they're gonna say, and all that stuff. But I said, you know what? You have to take a step back. And then I remembered Seth Godin, and like Seth doesn't sell just, he's preaching, be ethical marketing, do good. And I was like, well, he doesn't do all that stuff. And I just got inspired. Well, I read most of his books. I just got inspired by him and remembered, like, you don't have to be there. Some other people that we know in the marketing industry, there's like sell, hustle, hustle, hustle. So I used to be that guy. It's like following well-known people, especially two people in these days that promote the hustle mentality. It's like, I'm just tired of this hustle mentality. It's like, what's the value that you give people? And I had a thought yesterday. There was this guy, he did a video and he said, I sold $500 worth of membership without having a gym. It's like, but that's not nice. You sold something that, obviously the point was like, you can sell anything, but it's like, really, like, why would you do that? Like, why would you manipulate people? Well, he didn't manipulate, but like $500 worth of membership is not worth it. So to answer the question, it was Seth that really, like, his books really like made me think, actually you can be a good marketer and promote, because and there was a quote in one of his books. He said that marketing can drive change, and I was like, we can do this. So then I started obviously the process of
we all owe him a debt of gratitude, and this point is that I guess we have to come to grips first with the fact that marketing does work. I mean, that's our bedrock, right? I mean, you're wasting your time, in my opinion. Get out of this profession if you don't believe it works. But it works, and the fact that it can be used in a sleazy way or as a force for good, that is the real issue, because it's going to work out in either case. So we should look at it from Seth's lens and say, okay, well, it's a force for good, and I want to use it for that. And there's so many different directions you can go with that. But if you take that upbeat, positive, principled approach, then marketing, of course, in your own words, becomes a bridge that gets a buyer who has a problem to a point where they can meet the solution that will fix their problem and allow them to maybe get on to the next important thing in their life or in their job.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you said it perfectly, Glenn. You have to be the bridge, and you have to put your ego aside and say, how can we help this customer, and how can we help him transform? Like, the brand story is all about transformation, how we can transform this person, help them on the journey, not how can we sell. And once we ask that question, being the bridge, and it's really hard, to convince people, business owners, like, and marketeers, like, you're the bridge, we should be it's like how I think now is like, how can I serve? How can I become better? How can I help my customers become better? I signed up 2 days ago to a new workshop mastermind. It was quite pricey. I was like, you know what? I'm going to invest this so I can help my customers. It's not about myself. I can help them improve their results and become better. So yeah.
Right. You're working on Alexander 2.0 so that we can get customer 2.0.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. And this requires companies to do a little bit of homework if they haven't already. I guess this is what classically people who work with companies will say is they'll walk into a company, and I'm sure you've experienced this. You talk about this with hotels. You work in the hospitality sector to some degree, and you walk in and you ask them a question like, "What business are you in?" And in the case of hotels, you were saying some of them said, "We're in the business of renting a bed." And you want to turn to them and shake them and say, "No, that is not, I mean, it's a part, but that's not entirely what you do, right?" Tell us more about how you like to convince people to actually dig deeper than just that superficial layer.
Yeah, I always I worked with I worked with a lot with hotels. Now we work with different, like we have a university that we work with, and the fitness industry. And I always say, whatever industry it is now, it's like, what do you sell beyond the bed? What do you sell beyond your gym memberships? What do you sell beyond whatever you do? Like, why do you do what you do? Which is a typical question. But then, why should we care? That's another question. So how I try to convince them is like, okay, what is the transformation that you're trying to achieve? And most of the time is like, we're trying to sell. Well, why? Why would anyone care? Why would anyone buy from you? Why would I go to, why? And then they start thinking, and then I ask them, when we create stories, that's when we go a bit deeper. It's like, okay, so why are you in the company? Why you're selling this product? You can sell the company and you can leave and you can do something else. So
right, and this gets to the founder, right? Like if you're meeting the founder, that's the perfect person. You can start with, well, what was the origin? What got you so convinced that you had to do this, right? Because you were going to take on a ton of work, as you say. There's something else you could go and do with your time. Why this?
Yeah, and there's one thing that I think a lot of, we worked recently with a food startup in Spain, and the founder story where they say, he was like, we need the founder story. I was like, actually, no, when you're a startup, nobody cares about why you started this company. Apple and Nike's on all the big brands, yes, but when you're a startup, that nobody cares why you started. Like, genuinely, like the question is like, the answer is like, you're not important. It's why you have to ask yourself, what are the values, like what drives me, and then use that rather than your origin story, which the origin story is interesting, but when you're a bit bigger, you can have that on the website somewhere, but that's not the most important thing. I think the most important thing is the values. So when you find core values with whatever your values are, whatever values drove you to start the company, and then the other person, the buyer, has the same values or similar values, this can help me ABC solve the problem.
Yeah, very well put. I guess, yes, the reasons or the attitudes that led to the origin don't matter until the actual actions of a startup get it off the ground. And so you can later on get to that story. You can connect those dots later. In the short term, though, I'll just circle in on what you were saying about what you value. You even use the word what you believe. And you make it so important in stating what someone believes or what a company believes that it can sometimes even find its way into their mission statement. It can even find its way into their slogan. And you give a whole list of how brands, a number of globally recognized brands, don't actually say their category in their slogan. What they instead say is what they believe in. And they can do it in an amazingly short space. This is something that, we need to spend more time thinking about, and it's particularly hard because it is such a short space. But you're a very strong proponent of this, right?
Yeah, you're right. It's so hard not to speak about the category and about the products, because every time it's like, well, I'm selling this, but this is like, it's not like, as you mentioned, and in the book I mentioned, there's so many slogans and taglines that focus on the change. So I always say the best taglines and the best stories are the ones that focus on the absence of the product. Like, if we look back, even there was a famous campaign by Got Milk, It's like it talks about the absence of the milk. You don't have milk. But the best, I think, the best stories and the best taglines are always the change, and they have this inspiring attitude, the inspiring aura. Like, this is what we are trying to achieve. We are trying to have more runners run, or we want more people to get off the couch, or whatever that is, and that's inspiring, rather than just we sell cups, or we sell like, oh, okay, that's fine. That's why we become companies become commoditized, because they just focus on the product, and that's it. A hotel, it's like, okay, you're a hotel, fine. So whenever I need a hotel, but there are different hotels that you say, when I go to London or when I go to Canada, I'm going to book a hotel, Four Seasons or Citizen M or whatever the hotel is. The key is getting to the point where the person just, when they think about your category, you're number one. So for me, for example, shoes, running shoes, anything to do with running, it's Nike. Like, I don't even consider like going to another brand. And recently, actually, a month ago, I discovered a new brand, cycling brand, and I was like, that's it. For me, Rafa is number one. Like, I wanted a cycling shirt because I'm new to the sport. I had a couple of cheap ones, and it's such a great example when people say, oh, branding doesn't matter. Of course it matters. I spent it with them. I don't want to say how much, but a lot of money from a 50-pound t-shirt that a cycling jersey that I wanted. I bought the whole thing. And even like I had like the shorts, I had socks, I had everything from another brand. But I got so sold on the idea, on the concept, I just said, no, actually, I want everything to be Rafa now.
Right. Yeah, they had somehow identified so well with what you were looking for that price, fell way down the list in terms of your criteria for what you were going to buy. What you wanted was what they valued because you value it.
Yeah.
Right.
Spot on.
And it's a tough distinction to get, but I think it's a really, really important one. And we're going to talk, we've been kind of dancing around the one thing that enables us to have this value and speak about these, beliefs that we share, but we're going to take a really quick break before, and we'll come right back. I'm taking a moment talking about how you're managing in the world of GA4. To me, the new Google Analytics is more than just an interface. Its capabilities open up our entire funnel for analytical insights and for activating our marketing data. Now, most of you have installed GA4. That's great. To do this takes a bit more effort than that, because you must configure GA4 with Google Cloud components, takes BigQuery, Looker Studio, services that API data back and forth, etc. And that's why I'm holding GA Fast Forward in-person events to do this over 2 days with people. A group of us work together to implement this new stack using our own company's marketing data. We come away with ready-made dashboards and AI-built audiences that we can leverage in our Google Ads. These workshops are running in Eastern Canada and across New York State, and soon in Pennsylvania and Massachusetts too. You can go now and see all the details by going to gafastforward.com, either with the number 4 in fast forward or all spelled out. Let's get back to the show. Okay, Alexander, I think the thing that we have got at the center of this is the fact that we're telling a story, and our story is actually what the buyer is going through. And if we can frame it that way to them, and you go at quite some length on what the brain does when it hears a story, what the buyer is actually neurologically doing that allows them to feel what you're talking about and why you matter to them. But you have to bring it into a story for them, right? Even if it's like a very encapsulated story, you have to do that. And tell me why a story has to take us from A to B. What is the important thing? Why do we also have to have some friction in going from A to B?
Yeah. Well, basically, the simplest way to look at it is we have the right brain and the left brain, which is well known. The right brain is connected to the heart, and we say we buy on logic when we justify on emotion. And there's so many times.
Sorry, I think you mean the other way around.
Yeah, it's that way around. And when we want something, when we truly want something, and when we connect with something emotionally, we will find 100 reasons why to buy it. Yeah, because well, like I said previously with Rafa, it's like, oh well, it will match my top, which is bullshit. It's really not.
Right.
Like you can use your old, but we always justify that our purchases. So in order for a customer to do that, he needs to be sold on our idea, on our concept, and believe in what we believe. And I think one of the things that we don't speak about a lot in marketing and in business is the product. The product needs to be really good. And so many times I see the products, they're not that good in terms of quality.
Yes.
But the first thing is, once you have the product which is top-notch quality at the level that you can create, then you go in and say, okay, this is the market, this is what we do, the transformation that we do, and speak about the transformation that you're doing and the change that you're doing in society. And you don't need to speak about charities and donations that some companies jump on B Corps.
Right.
We're like, it's like, oh, we are now B Corp. Like I saw this in London. There's a trend, like there's so many companies that they become B Corp. It's like, well, actually you use it for marketing, really. You don't really care. Because I'll give you an example. There is a company that became a B Corp, a co-working space that I work from. And I sent them a message on Slack to the marketing manager, a simple message, a question. It's been, I think, 4 months. She hasn't answered yet. And it wasn't like anything. It's like, come, you're a B Corp and you don't answer a Slack message. I emailed her as well. It's like, well, you don't really care. So everything what they do now, in my eyes, that's it.
It sounds like they're in it for the cash.
Yeah. So it's better not to be a B Corp, but truly care, because when you truly care with your heart, like about your customers, you give a shit about your customers. People can feel that. People can see that. We can't. It's not 1970s anymore. People used to manipulate us and BS, and people can feel when we are passionate, when we truly care about the customer.
That's right. You talk about the media model. You say back then there were, 2, 3, 4 TV channels, limited radio, and exactly, it was one way from the company out to customers. Now, of course, the customers are speaking to each other. They can do that BS detection and verify, right? So if you really don't mean what you say, you will be found out very quickly.
Yeah, it's even a couple of days ago, Balenciaga has a huge problem with their marketing, because they had the scandal that goes in. It's surprisingly how not even one celebrity came out and said, called them out. I don't know the details, and I'm not a fan. I don't really care about them, but it's like they got caught. They got off Twitter and they just said, "Oh, we apologize." Well, you don't really apologize. But you mentioned something previously, Glenn, about having an obstacle, having a problem. So in the story, one of the most important things is to have a problem, which so many companies don't include. We were founded in 1985, and we grew so successfully. We have 30 shops around the world now. Okay, so this tells me you're a successful company. You have a lot of money. So what? Where's the problem? I'm sure. I'm sure from 1880, whenever you were founded, you had so many problems. So what I suggest always is find one problem, and there's so many problems that you can find, but find one problem that you're fighting and make it as you're fighting it with the customer to solve that problem. That can be laziness, that can be competence, that can be bad quality, and make it as you're going in a battle together, and your company is trying to solve that problem with your product, because you're fighting whatever that is, I don't know, and there's so many problems. And the most important thing, one of the most important things is not to get caught up in having 10 problems. Oh, we're solving this, we're solving this, we're solving this. No, just choose one big problem and just solve it, and that's it.
Right. Yeah, that tension and that authenticity can come through. So you're not saying don't talk about the company, but in the places where you do talk about it, make sure that the buyer understands that the company's issues, maybe it was a change in their industry or a cash crunch or whatever, but that the people behind the brand were so dedicated to getting the customer's problem solved that they made it over those obstacles.
Yeah, yeah, that's spot on. You have to communicate that in an easy way to digest, because so many times people communicate problems or stories, but they're so hard. It's like they're so complicated. Like, use simple language and communicate and say, this is the problem that we overcame, or this is the problem that is in the industry and we're trying to overcome it, and this is what we're working towards. Like,
or like it can be, I suppose it can be a little complicated. If I think of Dyson vacuums for a moment, I'm not an engineer. I don't understand how vacuums really do a good job. But I do understand very much that the founder of that brand dedicated his life to figuring out how to make an excellent vacuum. Why? I can be very sure that he did it because he felt that the average homeowner or apartment dweller, flat owner, should have a clean place. And so that's why he spent all of this time, a rather ridiculous amount of time, but by some people's estimation, on perfecting the vacuum. But that's why.
Yeah, that's spot on. That's because he was obsessed with one problem, and he solved that problem, and they keep going on and on. And there's some industries, some companies, they were obsessed, like Amazon, for example. I'm not a huge fan of them. We don't know what they stand for. Like, I always ask people, what's the first thing that comes when you think of Amazon? What's the first thing that comes, Glenn?
I mean, it's utilitarian, right? There's really not a higher purpose other than getting stuff to where it should be quickly and cheaply.
Yeah. So I always think it's Bezos comes to mind. Like, most people think, Amazon, Bezos, richest man in the world. So what do they stand for? Well, we know that, okay, the customer service, we can't say anything because it's great. I mean, in England, at least, like, whenever you need something, I'm sure they outsource tons of stuff and get like people from other countries. I know but as a company, I prefer always to avoid them because, well, from all the stories, like delivery drivers, they're not really paying them and all this, the internal stuff. But as a brand, they're like, I'm surprised that they're number 2 in the UK, at least. They're number 2 as most loved brand. It was like, wow, like most loved brand in the UK. It's like, or favorite brand, sorry, not most loved, favorite brand. And I understand why, because it's so simple. Alexa, buy toothbrush. Okay, tomorrow is going to be here. That's why it's so important to brand yourself, because they're using all the small companies that have passion for whatever they do, and they squeeze them for profits and for margins, and it's like it's ridiculous. And people say, well, Amazon, well, if you want to be like Amazon and grow at that level, that's fine. There are different ways. There's no right or wrong. But I think it's much more better to grow with a story that inspires people and make a change happen, not use their employees.
I suppose what you've just highlighted is that in the absence of a brand articulating its story, customers are going to make one up. And when we make one up, the default is going to be, well, you're a for-profit company, so I guess your story is you're here to make a profit.
Yeah.
So, that's not much of a story, right? There's nothing to empathize with there. There's nothing that makes me feel like, oh, well, you're my kind of people. Or to use Seth Godin's line, people like us do things like this, right? I'm not part of your people, if that's the case. But if you really stand for something and you provide a product or service that is in line with that, yes, I can empathize with that story, and I can begin to say that, like you did with the cycling gear, that I'll buy everything you have just because I want to be part of that story.
Yeah, I want people to, well, there's the more vain thing. I want people to think I'm cool, which is not the reason, but there's a part of that. I want people to think that I believe in the same quality because they're high quality. Right. They're premium. So I want people, when they see me, to think that I have the same belief in terms of, and some people might say in England, at least, there's, people that buy Rafa, they're very vain and all that. I don't care. It's like, if you think that, that's fine. That's not the main reason why people buy Rafa or a premium gear. I just like quality. You buy one shirt and it lasts for freaking 5 years rather than buying cheap stuff. Right. But that's another story. But like you said, when you don't have a story, people create their own stories, and you said it right. Like if you don't have a good story, people will think, oh, okay, yeah, so you're for profit. So another buying something from Amazon, it means, Jeff is getting more money and he's going to space and doing whatever he wants. So that's why it's so important to have all the images, have all the stories, have everything, so people don't make their own stories. Like, correct. Yeah, you're for profit. We like, I love capitalism, but not a mindless like Black Friday. I just think it's a joke. It's like everyone tries to sell. No, just be mindful. Like try to solve people's problems.
Unless it's for most brands. They don't need to fall for that. I do think that there are some brands that your book cannot appeal to. If we look at brands that are, let's say, selling vices, right? So you're a tobacco brand, you're, into things that do not help people, right? Or brands that are only into value extraction, right? So, maybe I'll put things like life insurance in that category, or things that are overbearingly harmful to the earth, right? So we can't put lipstick on those pigs. We're not going to try and make their stories into, oh, no, Mr. Customer, this is really for you. But for most brands, we can really clearly make a story that gives the customer that appreciation.
Yeah. Spot on. It's some brands, they just can't. They're just for profit. Their goal is every quarter we need to maximize everything, and we will use everything in our power. We will use ads. We will use. They'll hire consultants that do neuromarketing. It's like, okay, if you put this here, it's like, no. The book. I wrote the book for business people that are not business and marketing people, but business people that care about what they do.
Yeah. Or to maybe even lure some of those that are in those harmful types of businesses to say, business can be better than this, guys. You can be aspirational too. And maybe they'll come over to your side. You never know, Alexander.
Yeah, maybe. But you know what? You can't convince someone if they have the mentality shift is hard. So once you have a mentality of how can I give more, it takes time to change. It takes time to understand the concept. And I had workshops. I have created stories for brands, and some of them still don't truly get the idea of we're giving to people. We're like, but yeah, it's hard work.
When you work with brands in your agency life, I know that you do a lot of work on the creative side, on the videography and imagery side. A lot of this stuff is nonverbal, right? I mean, when you are taking a brand, boiling down their essence, and then giving that story across in a medium like video, there's a lot you can say without saying any words. You go through the process, I guess, of deconstructing all that and planning out how you're going to do a production shot so that you can get that across. Can you tell us a little bit about how you do that?
Yeah, so I always say there's so many nice videos, like production value is so high, like 50,000, 100,000 pounds. But it doesn't matter how nice the production is if there is no story that's emotional, that connects with people. Because okay, I have a nice camera, let's say, someone, and we do a nice. There's so many you go on YouTube and you see so many videos that are highly produced, but there's no story. So the first step, the number one before taking anything, is doing a story. And when you create a story, you need to have consumer insights. You need to have the problem. What is the problem? So we go through the process, which is hard, and we all want the shiny, the end result, the nice videos with effects. But it's so much better to have less in terms of quality-wise, production-wise, but have a story that when you watch that video, when you look at that story, it's like, wow, I love that. I connected with that. And we look at great videos like Nike does, but Nike is where they are now. They're not Nike in 1990s, so you can't compare that, because they put 150,000 pounds, dollars, whatever on just to test stuff, right? So I think the best way to do for smaller companies is just, okay, what's our story? What's the main message that we want to convey? How do we want our customers or people that are going to view this video feel when they watch the story? And take it from there, then do obviously the production, the shots, and execute from there rather than going backwards.
Yeah, and actually production quality, I think buyers will let you maybe not have as high a production quality. They'll allow a story to reach to them if it's high enough impact. So I think I'm just saying the same thing you did before. If you don't have any kind of purposeful message with impact, then it doesn't matter what the production quality is. So get the story first. Spend those times maybe just with a whiteboard or conversation with people, and hash through that story. Really think about it. And when you get it, I also think there's an aspect to this, and this gets us into how content works on things like social, is if you do it well enough, you can break that story into a million little pieces, and each tiny piece of that story, if you put it out on a 6-second or 30-second clip on social, it can do just a little bit of filling in that story for the watcher. You don't have to. I think brands sometimes worry, and they try to bring everything together in like one, corporate overview video. They get too monolithic in their thinking. You should be able to maybe just have a founder or someone as a leader in the company shooting on their phone, like just a few seconds of them saying something about what the company stands for. And that, along with the other items in their body of work, can get the story across, don't you think?
Yeah, of course. That's having someone who is authentic in front of a camera is much more beneficial and impactful versus having a high polished model with cameras that are equipment that are worth thousands, because it will make more impact. Having said that, I would say it's important to have one main video that's high quality, like. And you said it, like, don't put 100 messages into one video in 60 seconds. That's I think a lot of companies, they try to do one video, right, 60 seconds. What do you want to say? Well, we want to say A, B, C, everything. Quality. Yeah, everything. We want to, but they don't think that people are going to like, okay, so you stand for everything. So yeah, I think it's better to create in terms of quality, much more less, but focus on the quality of the story, quality of the person behind the camera. And the cliche word is authenticity, but that's just be authentic and say, this is who we are, this is what we do, but always focus on the problem as well. Like, this is the problem that we're solving. And you said something previously, Glenn, the most important thing, the most insights I always get when I create a story, except from the company, is interviewing customers. I am interviewing customers. Oh. So for example, now I had an interview yesterday with a customer of a customer, and just from a 20-minute Zoom call, I got so much like insights, and like we can create more content around what she said. Because once you get close to your customers, and people say always like, yeah, customers are important. Well, when was the last time you had a conversation with your customer? Just take them for a coffee. And it's hard. It's really hard. There was a client that I'm struggling with, not the client, but finding people that would interview, because it's 20 minutes, it's time, and it's a £50, £25 voucher. It's like, for them, it's like, especially affluent people that high an X number of net worth. It's like, well, I don't want to waste my 20 minutes on. But if we get if we get any clients and just speak with them genuinely and just have a conversation like we're having now, you can get so much. Obviously writing notes as well. Like, I always I leave all these meetings and researches that I do. It's like, wow, that's so interesting that she thought that. Like yesterday I was like, oh, we can do now content about this, we can do content about this, because of one conversation. Imagine having 10 people speaking. So that's, I would suggest, number one. Like if your listeners would do anything, if they would take away anything, just do this and you'll see how it improves. Because I can say that I'm fit or I'm whatever, but you know what? It's not what I say or my wants. It's how people perceive me, how people perceive the brand. And I can say that, I'm a luxury resort all day long. But if people don't say that, or 90% disagree and say, well, you're actually not a luxury, or actually you're not quality gear, running gear or whatever, it's like, you're not. So
yeah, their experience is really the only one that matters.
Yeah. I mean, you get some people that are like, well, they don't know what they're talking about, but that's fine. You can find them like 3 or 4, but not the majority.
That's it. Alexander, there are things that we haven't even covered in the book, and I do want people to have an opportunity to look at it. You even have said that you would be able to share a free chapter of the book for people who are interested. Can you tell me how they might get that, how they might get the book, how they might find out more about you?
Yeah, so it's really simple. You can go to notanotherpairofshoes.com/free, or if you just go to notanotherpairofshoes.com, on the left-hand side, you'll see a free chapter. You can download the free chapter to see, obviously, if you like the book. But I think you can just go on Amazon, or we're speaking about Amazon, but anywhere where books are sold. But that's the thing; they're so huge. It's like distribution-wise, It's so easy. I mean, in Canada, in America, everywhere.
That's it.
But yeah, you can get the book on Amazon. Or Kindle, and you can. If you have any questions, you can always get in touch with me on Alex at Alex Novicov on all social media channels, and
So on social media, that's great. Yeah, we'll put those in the show notes. And unlike where you were 5 years ago, I get the sense that you are upbeat about marketing's future and about how we can aspire to the higher, more purpose-driven side of what we do, right?
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, but and well, you had to do a lot of work. You had to write a book, I gather, to kind of make sure that you felt that way, but it comes through very clearly. And I want to thank you very much for sharing with us.
I thank you very much, Glenn. I appreciate it.
And I hope that the listener got a lot out of this, and that what they heard gives them insights that can help them make their marketing even better.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter @Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.